Learning about the impacts of tourism has led many people to seek more responsible holidays. These include various forms of alternative or sustainable tourism, such as nature-based tourism, ecotourism, and cultural tourism. But the real solution to these problems shall come about only when all forms of tourism adopt sustainability. Sustainable tourism should really become the mainstream and not the alternative. Sustainable tourism is defined as tourism that respects both local people and the traveler, cultural heritage and the environment. It seeks to provide people with an exciting and educational holiday that is also of benefit to the people of the host country. All tourism activities of whatever motivation, holidays, business travel, conferences, adventure travel, need to be sustainable. In agreement to the above, the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, took the momentous step of creating guidelines for the tourism industry, which surpassed many global norms and criteria, adopting what was suitable to India. Hence, creating Sustainable Tourism Criteria for India, or STCI, that are based on global norms. STCI currently has indicators and guidelines which are leading towards a certification system. Hospitality is an important pillar of the tourism industry, and it is absolutely imperative that it join the movement of sustainability. India International Hospitality Expo, which is a mega congregation catering to the powerful trio of fruit production, F&B equipments, and decor solutions, along with participation from the key decision makers who are shaping the hospitality industry today, in association with IHE, is the foremost hotel industry event happening in the country today. And sustainability in hospitality industry was a hot topic during this entire event. The sessions today are designed in such a way so that they demystify sustainability to the hotel industry professionals. And they will be based on the 4 pillars, which are sustainable management, socio-economic impacts, cultural impacts, and environmental impacts. The sessions of the day have also been structured around the same pillars. IIHE and IHE fervently hope that the sessions are helpful in not only increasing your understanding of sustainability practices, but also encourage you to adopt them. Let this be the beginning of a new, sustainable, hopeful future. So with this, I now request Mr. Ramesh Kaul to kindly come on stage and give the welcome address for this micro-iteration of this IHE. Sir.
Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you for a brief introduction about IHE. Ladies and gentlemen, as Nikhil said, my name is Ramesh Kaul. As Nikhil said, he is a practicing architect, but he's doing a day job out here. In IHE, between Anil Sharma and me, when we created, I am a hospitality consultant. Anil Sharma is an architect, but we realized that we want to create a forum where we need to discuss what all you should not do when you're setting up a hospitality project. Because there are so many advisors who will tell you what you should do, but there are very few people who will tell you what you should not do. Because it's a high capital intensive industry where a lot of capital goes in, and if you go wrong, obviously a lot of money is at risk. So we at IHE, between Anil and me, we try to realize that we help promoters to build projects which will sustain in terms of operations and overall the profitability. We had created IHE about 8 years back. We've had 7 sessions, and when IHE requested us that we should be a part of this entire conference, and I must compliment them the way they've organized this entire conference, including the suppliers, the sessions. I was really impressed the way they recognized Mr. Habib Rahman's contribution to this hospitality industry. We would try and create a platform where we address issues whichever they maybe the audience may have to understand how to set up right projects, and we'll continue to create programs and conferences to ensure that the hospitality industry benefits from it. Thanks for taking out the time this morning, and we certainly will address any of your queries. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Kaul, for your inspiring and motivating words, and also for being brief, which is always a lovely thing. We're running a few minutes late, and I'm hoping to make up time as we go along. We now begin session 1, which is a series of quick presentations based around the theme, Sustainable Tourism Criteria of India for the Hospitality Sector. Our first presenter, Mr. Rakesh Mathur, spent his childhood and grew up in Shimla, where he did his schooling from St. Edward's School and then his economics honors from SRCC. He joined the Oberoi Hotels as a management trainee in 1973 and grew in the industry and worked with global and multinational hotel organizations and was the first CEO BUS, which is now IHE Hotels and Resorts. He was then South and West Asia President, ITC Welcome Heritage Hotels, where he pioneered the heritage and circuit tourism movement in India before his retirement in 2011. He is a recipient of the Karamveer Patra from Congo for pioneering the Code of Conduct for Safe and Honorable Tourism, the Patwa, and several other awards for pioneering heritage and cultural and circuit tourism. He is currently engaged in his own investments in Crossroads Hotels and Resorts, Arts Hospitality, and Woodbridge Guest Homes. I now request Mr. Rakesh Mathur to please come on stage and enlighten us with his presentation.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. That introduction is almost as long as my presentation. Thank you very much. Let me just begin by saying that I don't intend to give you any lecture on sustainability. I'm not an expert on environment. Neither am I an expert on ecotourism. I'm a hotelier by profession. I've learned the hard way. Somewhere down the line, I realized that the tourism industry has got to behave in a very, very responsible manner out of pure consideration for the environment. And that is what prompted me, along with certain other colleagues, to establish the Ecotourism Society of India way back, I think in 2008 it was. Now, there is a direct link between the objectives of Ecotourism Society of India, which I personally would now refer to as the Responsible Tourism Society of India, and high aim. And what is the link? The link is that high aim, hospitality industry, architecture, interior, management, which encompasses things like, the entire supply chain, materials, all the materials used in building and design, construction, have to have a focus towards ultimate sustainability if we are to protect the environment. Actually, every morning, I wake up and there are very, very small things. This is no rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. There are very, very small things that I'm paranoid about. I just wonder, and pardon me, you may think I'm being very foolish. Have you ever thought of how much steel, stainless steel, you are wasting by stapling an envelope 10 times? I don't know whether this thought has ever struck you, but when I see courier packages coming to me where the guys have used about 10 staples, I look at the fact that this stainless steel, which has a hidden cost, which has what we call embedded cost, is lost forever. Is there a substitute we can work towards? I'm paranoid about seeing, sheets of paper being thrown which are not printed on both sides. I also think about hotels using thick duvets and lowering room temperatures down to 18 degrees so you can sleep in comfort. Is it really necessary? Is the air conditioning how much cost of air conditioning and energy would be reduced if instead of using thick duvets, we used something else. Talk about conferences. And I'm also guilty right now, lowering the temperature to a certain degree and then wearing a suit and coming for a conference. I think these are the things that bother me. These are the things that I don't know. We cannot really find solutions to everything. I mean, the water bottles on the table, what's going to happen to each and every bottle that is lying on the table? This is what disturbs me. I look at, little things like, I just want to show you, I brought this bag with me, which I picked up in Bhutan. It says Clean Bhutan, Green Bhutan, and it says being a responsible citizen. This is made of jute. It's very different from the bags that we've been used to in conferences in the past. The plastic takeaways we used to get. And look at this. I'm deliberately wearing this duplicate tag vis-a-vis this, which is more environment friendly. I think we need to be genuinely, honestly concerned about these little things. And incidentally, this is going to be reused and recycled. This is probably going to be thrown away because it's printed with a particular date and a particular conference, etc. So, the worst offenders in our country, unfortunately, is what I call the unorganized sector, where there is no control. I will not say that the organized hotel industry is not aware. It is very much aware. It's doing a lot. It's contributing a lot. But in India, 70%, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, 70% of tourism is catered to by the unorganized sector. And ladies and gentlemen, that is where a significant part of our problem lies. You must have traveled all over the country. You go to the mountains and you see those, the valleys between the mountains full of plastics dumped all over. You must have seen TV coverage about that whale which died on some beach where they pulled out plastics from the stomach of that whale. So this is what is happening is absolutely something. My another paranoid thought that I have is, what is the kind of world that I'm leaving for my grandchildren and children? So, keeping all this in mind, I personally do feel that tourism does have a negative impact on the environment unless and until it is conducted responsibly by both service providers and tourists. And I think in order to, there is a role that education, right from school down the line, has to play in converting the tourist into being a responsible tourist. So that is a very, very important thing. And if tourism is not controlled, it could actually become the worst polluter. Now this brings me to another thought. There is a very thin line, not thin line, but there is a line between comfort and luxury. I think everybody looks for basic comfort, basic hygiene, basic sanitation, basic safety and security. But luxury, if it is not controlled or if it is not offset, I think it has a negative impact on the environment. I gave you the example of the duvet. Let me give you another example which I've been talking about. Take the example of wildlife resort in Ranthambore, and you want to serve, or the customer wants to be served, let's say, pâté de foie gras or caviar. Now, do you realize what would be the environmental footprint of transporting caviar from Russia or pâté de foie gras from France in refrigerated conditions to Ranthambore, first by plane, then by train, and then storing it, and then servicing it to the customer who's willing to pay $2,000 per room per night? Sure, he can afford it. I call this conspicuous consumption. But he can afford it, he can pay for it, never mind the cost of, the environmental cost of doing this. So the question is, who will define what is to be served in Ranthambore? I think it is the service provider. I think it is we as hoteliers who have to lay down the basic guidelines for what we want to do in our destination so that the environment footprint is minimized. And so comes the role of technology. You know, the architects, the engineers, the interior designers, manufacturers, suppliers of equipment and furniture and fixture and so on and so forth, to ensure that whatever we do, whatever we design, number one, is environment friendly. Number two, it is energy efficient. And number three, it optimizes costs and revenues so that it's a profitable venture. And finally, it is sustainable in the long run. Therefore, I want to share with you that we worked very closely with the Government of India, the Department of Tourism, in evolving what we call the Sustainable Tourism Criteria of India. And I've just brought these to show you that it's now a document, a formal document. And not only that, there was an oath, there was a pledge, which was also formulated. I would like to read it out because it's very, very motivating. We solemnly pledge and reiterate our commitment to conduct our business in a manner that befits the culture and ethos of our rich and ancient civilization and the tolerant and accommodating nature of our multicultural society, and protect all individuals, especially women and children, from all derogatory acts which are contrary to the spirit of our country. We hereby commit ourselves to the Code of Conduct for Safe and Honorable Tourism. Recognizing that every earth resource is finite and fragile, we further pledge to fully implement sustainable tourism practices consistent with the best environment and heritage protection standards, such that our present tourism resource requirements optimize both local community benefit and future sustainable uses. Now, this pledge, as well as the criteria, was adopted, and the criteria for safe and honorable tourism was adopted by the Ministry of Tourism a couple of years back. And the process of implementation is on. As a matter of fact, I'll also share with you that the Ecotourism Society of India also has printed the Ecotourism Environment Handbook, which is regularly updated and which contains all these codes of conducts. I may add here that the STCI, Sustainable Tourism Criteria of India, is absolutely based on the global Sustainable Tourism Criteria, what is known as the GSTC. So, I thought I would launch the proceedings of the day by telling you what all is happening. A lot has been achieved. A lot remains to be achieved, to be done. We have formulated the criteria. We are implementing the criteria. We will gradually, possibly lead on to the process of certification. But to talk more about this, I'm very pleased to say that it was a very pleasant surprise for us that we have Mr. Randy Durbin, who is the CEO of GSTC, who was visiting India. So we grabbed the opportunity to invite him and Mr. Ram Kumar, who is the head of South Asia for GSTC. And a warm welcome to you, Randy and Ram. And of course, Randy will be giving you his views and his experience sharing. We have a galaxy of speakers, including, I'm very, very happy to say, Mr. Vinod Zutshi, who was the last Secretary of Tourism, Government of India. Mr. Vinod Zutshi was critical in helping us to launch the STCI and the pledge. And though we had worked on it for several years before, but it was during his tenure that we were finally able to launch it. We have several environmentalists, we have technocrats, we have operators, we have owners, managers, architects, engineers, culinary experts, academics who are here with us today. So, and I'm so happy to see that we have a nice gathering here. I do hope that during the course of the day, all the seats get filled up, because it's a very, very focused, very, very informative program that we have laid out for you for the full day. And one last thing I want to say is whatever transpires today, I'm going to make a note and we'll submit a white paper to whoever we need to submit, so that something positive comes out of it, and not that it's only another one of those discussions which end up without any end result. I forgot to show you one more environment-friendly thing which I had picked up. You see this fork, this spoon, and this swizzle stick. This is made of wood, and this is one of those wood. I checked. This wood is one of those fast-growing poplar trees which can be regenerated, which can be regenerated within a year or two. So I'm happy to see these things are happening. I have the number and the address of the person who's supplying these from Bombay, and people who are supplying bags like this. I would urge anybody and everybody here to start thinking environment immediately as of yesterday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mathur, sir. That was an excellent introduction for the rest of the day, and you also helped me out by introducing a lot of the speakers. I also believe the Ecotourism Society is a knowledge partner for this event, so definitely more power for you. I now call upon Mr. Vinod Zutshi for our second session. Mr. Vinod Zutshi joined the IAS in 1982 and belonged to the Rajasthan cadre. He superannuated in February 2017 at the post of Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Mr. Zutshi has 35 years of experience in the central government and the government of Rajasthan, with long experience and exposure in the field of tourism. He served as Secretary of Tourism, Government of India between 2015 and 2017. He is an alumni of the Harvard Kennedy School and an MBA from the Faculty of Management Studies, Delhi University. Mr. Vinod Zutshi is now into the profession of consultancy and advisory in the fields of travel, tourism, and hospitality. Mr. Zutshi, could you please share your thoughts with us on the government's perspective to sustainability?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed a pleasure for me to speak in one of the most important and talked about subject, that is sustainability, and that too from the government perspective before this august audience at an international forum. I would like to begin with the fact that the sustainability is not limited globally only to the sector of tourism. Sustainability is now a part of the Sustainable Development Goals enunciated by none other than the United Nations itself. So sustainability as a whole, ladies and gentlemen, has to be seen from the point of view of all the sectors, not just tourism. I am going to focus more on sustainability tourism in Indian context from government perspective, and also give some reference to the hospitality sector as to what are the expectations of the government from the hospitality sector as far as sustainable tourism is concerned. Enhancing the well-known economics and social environmental benefits while managing its negative impacts are highly important for governments. And that is why sustainable tourism has become a part of the government's policies all over the world and has crept into their national development strategies. The message today to the entire world is loud and clear as far as tourism is concerned. If we want to sustain tourism, if we want to pass on the virtues and the benefits of tourism to the future generations, the only answer is to follow the path of sustainable tourism. It is a global issue, ladies and gentlemen, no longer limited to any developed country, and it is more required in the developing country like India. India requires sustainable tourism much more than any other country because of its large population, because it has a very rich natural heritage, cultural heritage, and because the sustainability index in India is still very low as compared to many other countries. I would like to give a reference of the TTCI, the Travel and Tourism Competitive Index, 2017 report, which is brought about by the World Economic Forum. In the 17 report, I'm only highlighting the pillar of environmental sustainability. There are 14 pillars on which 136 or more economies all over the world, they are compared with each other as to which is more positive on the tourism, on the sustainability of tourism, and in terms of the development of tourism in their economies. I am very sorry to say that in the last report of 2017, as far as environmental sustainability is concerned, the pillar of environmental sustainability, India ranks 134th out of 136. That is just third from below. Now, this is a matter of anxiety and worry for all of us. And it's time that all of us understand the responsibility of maintaining, of sustaining tourism in this country, which I think has tremendous potential in the years to come. I mentioned that it is a global issue and a global concern. And no wonder why sustainability has been brought as a resolution in the UN General Assembly in the 70th session in the year 2015. It adopted the bold and ambitious 2030 agenda for sustainable development along with 17 sustainable development goals. I'm not going to talk about all the goals, but I'm going to refer to 3 goals which make a special mention for the need of sustainable tourism in all the economies. The first is the goal 8, and within goal 8 there is target 8.9. I'm going to read it out. By 2030, devise and implement policies to promote sustainable tourism that creates jobs and promotes local culture and products. The second is goal 12, and target 12B within the goal states, it is imperative to develop and implement tools to monitor sustainable development, impacts for sustainable tourism that creates jobs, promotes local culture and products. And third, goal 14, the target 14.7 states, by 2030, increase the economic benefits from sustainable use of oceans, seas, and marine resources through sustainable management of tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the privilege to represent India in the capacity of Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, in the year 2017 in Madrid, Spain, where the UNWTO launched globally the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development 2017. And you would be happy to note that more than 60 countries, the heads of the 60 countries, of the ministers and senior officials of 60 countries assembled for the global launch, and they endorsed the criteria, the use of sustainable tourism in their economies. So, ladies and gentlemen, the point which I'm wanting to drive at this moment is that it is not, the sustainability is a requirement of the entire globe. And when we are talking of climate change, when we are talking about environment, we have to take sustainability as a global issue. Amongst the government all over the world, as has already been mentioned by my previous speaker, but even for the sake of repetition, I would like to mention, what is the global understanding? There may be hundreds of definitions about sustainable tourism as such, but the global understanding amongst all the countries, they are restricted to 3 brief points. How to make optimal use of environmental resources and minimize harm to the environment. Promote tourism, but at the same time, how to make optimal use. Now, it is not that you have to only prevent the environment, it has to also, being a tourism area, you have to make optimal, you have to make use of the environment. You have to make use of natural resources. You want to travel on oceans, you want to travel on seas, you want to go on the rivers, you want to trek mountains, but make an optimal use. The second is respect the socio-cultural authenticity of host communities and conserve their cultural heritage and values. You don't have to promote their cultural heritage. You have to conserve. You have to respect the socio-cultural. You should not be changing the environment, the socio-cultural environment where you go as a tourist or a traveler. And thirdly, you must try to give some socio-economic benefits to all stakeholders, including employment and income generating opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, much before the resolution of the United Nations came, Indian government took the initiative to bring out the need of sustainable tourism 2 or 3 manners. The current National Tourism Policy of 2002 highlights the essentiality of sustainable tourism and considers it as a guiding star of the policy. Now imagine 16 years before, the policymakers and the thinkers in India recorded this clause in the National Tourism Policy of 2002. That means the concern for sustainability in tourism was very much in the minds of the policymakers and the government at that time. The draft tourism policy of 2015, which is going to be the new tourism policy and will see the light of the day very soon, has laid further emphasis by stating that developing and promoting tourism, I'm quoting, developing and promoting tourism economically, socially, culturally, and environmentally in a responsible, sustainable, and inclusive framework. Now, this is the call of the new draft tourism policy, and once this comes to the light, you can imagine the entire thinking, the entire strategy, the policy framework, the action plans will actually accordingly, modify to suit the policy. But it's not just that the ministry has been waiting for the policy. Things have been started, in the direction of bringing in the sustainability tourism culture. Even in 2014, we talked about STCI. In 2014, rising to the opportunities of sustainable tourism requirement, the ministry launched the comprehensive STCI about which Mr. Rakesh Mathur had mentioned. This was applied for accommodation, for tour operators, for beaches, backwaters, lakes, and river sectors. And although the implementation of STCI is voluntary and incentive-based, the government's intent and policy direction were three-pronged, as I had mentioned earlier: resource conservation, preservation of culture and heritage, and growth of a more economic and social order. Ladies and gentlemen, despite all these initiatives in India, I have already touched upon the index of environmental sustainability of India as compared to other countries, and I am very regretfully I have to mention that the progress of India in this direction has been much below the expected level. In fact, Kerala has taken the lead of both responsible tourism and sustainable tourism, but many other states have still to warm up and start beginning to take actions into this. And I have already mentioned the TTCI. In fact, I had written an article on the futuristic tourism policy, and I highlighted this particular point, that we have to go proactively in the direction of bringing in sustainable tourism. I would also like to mention, once I returned from Madrid, and I was so excited about the whole thing, seeing that the entire world is focusing on the requirement of sustainable tourism, we came back and prepared a comprehensive plan, a master plan, a roadmap, and it was aimed at 2 or 3 things. One, to mobilize all the stakeholders together, because we have to, as ministry, we had to lead from the front. And we also tried to bring in the awareness, amongst the people, amongst the states. There were conferences which were followed immediately after we returned. But let me tell you, along with STCI, which we have been implementing for years together, based on GSTC, more of actions are being taken in the light of what UN has guided us in terms of sustainable development and sustainable tourism after the International Year of Sustainable Tourism was celebrated. In fact, in India also we had lots of seminars and discussions basically to bring in awareness about the sustainability tourism. Now the question is, who are the stakeholders? I mean, who will derive the benefit if we are sustainable? And who are the people who are actually responsible for bringing in the regime of sustainability? I would like to list some of them. The main players remain the government agencies, the government organization, everyone in the government, including municipal administration, local bodies, and travel and tourism industry, including hospitality. We're discussing about hospitality sector. I would speak about it a bit later. The host community and the tourists and the travelers. Now, coming to the government, I would like to just highlight what are the areas we are looking at. And people expect the policies to be amended, policies to be corrected, policies to be mid-course corrections to be done. In case there are certain policies, they need to have a review, a relook, and to see whether they are sustainable or not. In fact, then conserve the natural resources, protect heritage, prevent over-tourism. Now, in terms of over-tourism, this is the latest problem that everyone is facing, the whole world. I can give you the instance of Taj Mahal. You may have read in the newspaper some time ago that the government or the ASI was contemplating on putting a limit on the visitors to Taj Mahal. Or for that matter, in fact, I addressed one of the heritage conventions in Ahmedabad, which was focused on how to sustain a World Heritage Site. Because if we have a problem of over-tourism, it starts with a World Heritage Site which is inundated by people. And if the carrying capacity of that site, of the destination is less, of course, things are going to suffer. So more focus has to be done on those destinations which have the problem of over-tourism. And of course, the government's responsibility is also to take up the awareness campaign. In fact, for tourism industry, in fact, GSTC is the best guideline. STC of India is more specific to India, and it is expected by everyone. In fact, in the classification of hotel, somebody mentioned about the guidelines. For hospitality sector, as you know, we have instilled in the guidelines itself that unless these provisions are made by the hotel, we will not give them the classification or certification, whatever is desired. Some of them are the requirement of eco-friendly practices like sewage treatment, then rainwater harvesting, waste management, pollution control for air, water, and light, and of course, energy, water conservation by use of solar energy. Even the architecture of the building is to be such so that it is eco-friendly and energy saving. Now, these are some of the factors which I have highlighted as far as hospitality sector is concerned. I will also like to mention the more irresponsible behavior of the industry, or whether tourism, whether trade, whether hospitality, the more restrictions will come from the government. You have to also understand what kind of mindset exists at the moment. The environmentalists, the Ministry of Environment, the judiciary, the National Green Tribunal. I mean, I will give you some instances. We tried very hard to relax and liberalize and maybe, bring in some kind of flexibility in the coastal regulatory zone. Now, CRZ is a very stringent law which prohibits building of hotels next to the beaches. Now, I would certainly hope, in fact, I had got this information before I left the ministry, that the guidelines have been framed, they are being relaxed. However, they are in a draft stage, they are into objections, claims and objections are being invited. And I hope that one day the CRZ guidelines will be relaxed further. But the thing is, unless the environmentalists, unless the government has this feeling that the industry is still not being responsible towards maintaining and sustaining the tourism criteria, the more they will take more time to relax these stringent restrictions. Same applies for the tourists and the visitors. The visitors have to be responsible. I mean, we talk about responsible tourism. That is another global issue which everyone is talking about. The world travel market has a separate, complete day for responsible. Rather, all the 3 days, there is a separate fora for discussions on responsible tourism. I have also attended one. Now, if the people are not responsible, then also there will be restrictions. We all criticize the Archaeological Survey of India that you don't open the monument beyond 5 o'clock, and there are many other issues. Now, unless the people become responsible, the restrictions would continue to be there. I would also like to mention one such example of the riverside camping. Now, riverside camping across Ganga has been banned by NGT and some restrictions have been placed. Now that is because the SOPs were not followed. That is because, people came to know that, the guidelines are not being followed. And once it falls on the ears of the NGT or the government, obviously. So we told Uttarakhand government to bring out with certain guidelines. We posed before the NGT, the Government of India Ministry also helped them. My point basically is that as you sow, so shall you reap. If you want the governments, if you want the legal, the judiciary, if you want the NGT and all people who matter to consider further relaxation in order to promote tourism in India, you have to be responsible at all levels and you have to follow the sustainability criteria. Well, I would like to mention one thing more about the tourists, that, the slogan that UNWTO brought along, during the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development in the year 2017. I mean, this, I think, sums up everything for a tourist. It said, travel, enjoy, and respect. So you travel, don't stop traveling. And do you enjoy also the traveling? Don't be restricted. But at the same time, you respect the environment, you respect the socio-cultural situation there. You also respect in terms of providing something economically. So, ladies and gentlemen, India in particular has to follow the code and ethics of sustainable tourism in a bigger manner, more religiously, more expeditiously, for the reason that I have already mentioned to you. And to make it possible, all of us, the governments, the industries, I'm not referring only to tourism industry. You can't afford to have tourists on the banks of Ganges if you have the polluting industries next door. You know how much the present government is struggling to clean Ganga and to clean Yamuna. So who will enjoy river tourism? Who would like to go for inland waterways if the rivers are polluted? So it is not just tourism industry which has to be concerned about the sustainability. It is the entire sector of industry which has to be responsible. The society, the travelers, of course, each one of us has to rise to the occasion, and so that tourism continues to remain a virtuous industry for all times to come. I am thankful to the organizers, particularly IHE, for having invited me and to give me this good opportunity to be with you, to share my thoughts. And I am very thankful to the audience to give me a patient hearing. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
So before we get to the next speaker, we're running a little late and I'm going to be a little more strict with time. So for all speakers, if I'm calling you off, don't take offense. It's just me trying to make sure we have lunch on time. I now call upon Mr. Randy Durbin, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, the UN-supported NGO that establishes and manages global baseline standards for sustainability in travel and tourism. He brings a unique blend of skills and experience based on 2 career paths he has taken in travel and tourism, 24 years in senior leadership positions with major tour operators, including as president of Travcoa, and his second career of 9 years and counting began with the economic development projects through tourism in developing countries relating to emerging destinations, including CBT and rural tourism with UNESCO and ILO. Mr. Durbin, the dais is now yours, and I look forward to your presentation from a global perspective.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Very nice to be here with you. I've got a few slides to share some visuals to help move through a good deal of information quickly, so I'll do my best on timing. But GSTC has been mentioned by both of the speakers, Mr. Mathur and Mr. Zucchi, and I want to explain what GSTC is, and I'd like you to keep in mind a key theme throughout my presentation, that the GSTC as a global framework is designed to harmonize with national programs like SETI and not to confuse or to conflict in the marketplace, but to harmonize, and I hope that comes through during the course of the presentation. So first of all, who are we? We're an NGO created by the United Nations system and the conservation community. You'll see on the screen that UNWTO and UNEP, now known as UN Environment, were the leaders in the creation of us to set global standards, baseline standards for sustainability in travel and tourism. The United Nations Foundation first housed us and registered us in Washington, D.C., where we're very global. And the Rainforest Alliance, along with WWF and others in the conservation community, were very much active in our creation. So it's a coming together of the United Nations system and the conservation community to create baseline standards. So we have two sets of baseline standards, one for the private sector that was first launched in 2008 that we called the GSTC criteria for hotels and tour operators. At its second revision, the third version in 2016, we renamed that the GSTC industry criteria because we've now created an umbrella where we can grow into other sectors, other subsectors, if you will, beyond hotels and tour operators. And in 2013, we got into the business of speaking to government with the development of baseline standards for destination management. The GSTC criteria, I'd ask you to think of them as operating on two levels. One, tools for the destination managers, but also one for policymakers at the national level, provincial, state, municipal, any level of government is a tool for policy. Both sets of criteria are based on these four pillars. This is very important to the essence of who we are and the work we're doing for sustainability. Often people think of sustainability first and foremost as environmental issues, and of course, that's an essential and vital part of it. But our founders said, because tourism is such an important part of the fabric of society, it's a people exchange for the visitors and the visited, that it must have the social components. Some of that has been mentioned by some of the speakers. And the cultural elements, and we look at culture in two ways here, is we talk about the preservation of cultural heritage, but also respect for living culture. And we have the fourth pillar being management, because we're at the stage of human development where we haven't been acting very sustainably, have we? So therefore, we build into the criteria management elements that speak to how to apply to all these things. So the three pillars of social and economic, cultural and environmental contain universal principles that can be applied anywhere in the world, and the management criteria speak to how to apply it in practice anywhere in the world. It's very important to understand that the GSTC criteria are not Western standards, they're not UN, or not hidden committee created these. All of the creation and revision of our standards follow an incredibly inclusive process where we seek input from all continents of the world, from public sector, private sector, civil society, academia, any interested party can have input into the revision and the development of the criteria. So they're truly global. Our global experts and members are absolutely truly global and truly, inclusive of all those different groups that I've mentioned. So again, I'm going to ask you to think through, how this ties into the India context and that we don't compete with it. But let me make a couple of points just very quickly about the role of standards in general. Sometimes we think of them purely as the basis for certification, and they are certainly that. But I challenge you to think of them on bullet 2 of the fact that standards can play a very vital role in training, education, and awareness. I think that so much of what we can do on sustainability in all sectors is some simple awareness raising. Mr. Mathur made the point about staples and so forth. So many little things in life. There's so many things we can all do to affect change and improvement by just raising awareness. The GSTC criteria exist in the public domain free of charge, and we invite you to download the criteria, use them to raise awareness of your staff and so forth, because so much could be done so easily. There's so much that could be done on visitor behavior. I know we're short on time, but I have to just share one amazing piece of visitor behavior. Coral reef throughout the world is in serious danger. The Pacific island of Guam, with much scuba and snorkel business, the divers damage the coral by touching. By simply requiring that tour operators simply ask the people getting off the boat for snorkel and scuba not to touch coral, they saw a 75% reduction in the touching of coral. Just simply asking people. So this is one of those pieces of low-hanging fruit, as let's just be aware of the issues, improve upon them among staff and visitors. Standards are also, voluntary standards are often the basis for legal and regulatory codes. We need to measure and do better on measurement and evaluation of sustainability in the world, and standards play that role. And as this presentation, I'm going to show you the latter part, gives a tremendous market access role. The SDGs have been mentioned. Mr. Zucchi mentioned the three that mentioned the tourism specifically. And on this issue of market access, I'm going to ask you to focus in this presentation also on SDG number 12 that speaks to responsible consumption and production. I'll address that. So I gave you the role of standards a moment ago. Now let's think about the role of certification. Certification plays a vital role in these ways. You verify the validity of any of your claims by getting an activity, a service, a product certified. And you can fight false claims. And we're now seeing many false claims that we call greenwashing. A business, an enterprise, a destination can do much to mitigate risk by going through the discipline and the process of certification. But in general, the process of certification provides an amazing discipline for improvement. We can all say, yeah, we'll work on this and we'll work on that. But if you don't go through a disciplined process with a checklist, with measurable goals to attain, it's difficult for an individual to make progress. It's difficult for an organization to make progress. So I'd like you to think of certification as that way. And again, there's a market access function, which I want to talk about. So to put in context what we've been building here in the 11 years of our existence at GSTC, I want to share a bit with you of how this has worked successfully in other sectors. So if you look at the screen, you'll see that I've put on the icons, the logos, I should say, of a couple of other eco-labels that have been in existence for a while. FSC in the middle is the Forest Stewardship Council. Since 1993, they put in an eco-label on sustainably produced wood and paper. Since 1996, MSC, the Marine Stewardship Council, has been doing that for sustainably produced fish and seafood. These structures are the basis for sustainable procurement. I see that much of the content of this conference today and tomorrow speaks to procurement. And I challenge everyone to think very actively about procurement. Some things have been mentioned already by the previous two speakers. Mr. Matur, with the biodegradable silverware instead of using plastic, there's so many things. So the full range of procurement can be impacted, and we can improve sustainability in so many ways with sustainable procurement. These are ways to verify that the products are indeed sustainable. And the two that have been in existence for some time that I have on the left side of the screen, you can find them quite easily in terms of procurement. There's not excellent consumer awareness of any of them. The consumer awareness of some of these labels is growing. Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade Coffee and Chocolate has been growing. But they've been at it for 30 years, and they focus for 20 years only in the UK and USA market. It takes time and a huge amount of marketing. But what we need to do as travel professionals, focus on the procurement side, and the consumer awareness and so forth will follow. What we're doing at GSTC is focused on three areas that correspond to the criteria: hotels, tour operators, and destinations. And we use the term tour operators very broadly to include anybody involved in transport, anybody involved in the packaging of travel, anybody involved in the selling of travel packages. So it's a very broad category. So what this framework shows you is that in other sectors, we have around the world all these certification bodies, and you're going to hear from one here shortly. And these groups in the middle play this role. I'm not going to get into the technical issues of their standard owners, and they're involved in accreditation, but it's important for you to understand the basic structure is that the groups in the middle take an intensive look at the quality and neutrality of the certification bodies to ensure that they are operating competently and neutrally. We don't want pay for play. It's not third-party independent certification if somebody just fills out an application and calls themselves certified. A self-assessment like that is meaningless, and this structure fights against that. All of these structures are following an organization called the ISEAL Alliance, which has gathered up all the relevant ISO standards relevant to the issues that each of these are working on, and created a set of codes, 3 codes: standard setting, impacts code, and assurance code. My point here is that this whole framework is rock solid in following the highest levels that exist in the world to achieve credibility and excellence. And so by engaging in this structure, you can't do better in terms of credibility. So where does India fit in? Well, with your Sustainable Tourism Criteria of India, SSTCI, we're working through and sorting out issues where certification bodies can use the SSTCI, the Indian version, which is harmonious with the GSTC version, adding Indian context to universal principles. So you have the best of both worlds, and Dr. Anjuna will explain more here very shortly. But my point is that it's a harmonized structure. And by entering this structure, you enter a framework that's highly credible and provides some very interesting access to markets. And what do I mean by that? This is all very new in travel and tourism because we're a baby, we're 11 years old, but just in the past year and a half, 2 years, we've launched an accreditation scheme which allows us now to enter into this realm that FSC and MSC and many others have been in for quite some time. And so now WWF, which has tremendous influence in corporate procurement around the world, they have partnered with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines, the second largest cruise line in the world, on a 5-year campaign to help them green their supply chain. So they've set carbon emissions reductions targets for all their ships. And of course, Royal Caribbean calls upon Mumbai and Cochin, and I'm not sure where else in India, but this is relevant. This slide is very relevant to India because according to this, any tour operator that meets a group that gets off a Royal Caribbean ship needs to strive to get certification eventually according to the GSTC framework. And on the ships, look at the target. By 2020, 90% of fish and seafood served on the ships would be eco-labeled by MSC. This is verifiable, meaningful greening of one's supply chain. Nobody could question this. If the suppliers have purchased from producers that follow this. So we're going to see more of this. On the hotel side, we've seen many international hotel chains have developed in-house programs. We're talking to them about making the pinnacle of their program independent third-party certification by a certification body that's accredited by GSTC. One of the largest travel companies in the world, a German and British group, but it's global. They have 150 plus brands. They've got a joint venture here in India. They're all over the world in many brands, whether you are familiar with TUI or not, but truly one of the largest travel companies in the world. They're using this framework. They set targets. First, they wanted to get their own house in order, so the statistic of 80% you see on the screen there refers to the fact that of their owned and operated hotels, they're striving to get 100% of them certified. When they do, then they're going to push the supply chain outside any hotel they use globally, not just those that they own and operate. So this framework is coming, and it's being pushed by some of the largest purchasers of travel product in the world. So I just want to give you a glimpse of it. There's many more examples. These are 2 prominent ones from very large international corporations that are moving in this direction. But the point is that your Sustainable Tourism Criteria of India, by being aligned with GSTC, when we get all the technical issues sorted out in the coming weeks and months, become part of this. And that your Indian suppliers can be part of this and not looking on the sidelines. So I hope I shortened nicely a lot of complex material, but I hope that's very helpful. Very nice to be with you, and thank you for your attention. Nice to be with you.
Thank you, Randy. It's always such a pleasure when people come back to bringing us on time. Our 4th speaker, Dr. Anjuna Parashar Dheer, is a multi-skilled professional active in the areas of tourism, higher education, corporate restructuring, and continuous professional development. Her current engagements lie in the area of creating sustainability best practices for the tourism industry and benchmarking with international bodies. As an academic and a marketing professional, Dr. Dheer has had a very creative 10-year stint in areas as teaching, creating and launching industry-relevant courses, and research and consultancy. Her research interests lie in the field of sustainability in business practices, in craft traditions, lifestyle practices, and livelihoods. Ma'am, please do share your thoughts on STCI and its relevance.
Good morning to you all. My job have been made tremendously easy by all the three previous speakers because they've said everything that I needed to say. So the only thing left for me is to maybe detail what STCI means. So what I'll do is I'll sum up what all of them have said and also introduce STCI to you. The contents of my presentation are sustainability mindset, which has been introduced by Mr. Mathur and emphasized by Mr. Ruchi, sustainable tourism criteria for India, the methodology, and call for action. We, you, me, all of us sitting here have been the lucky generation. We've lived through the best of times where technology was available. Never before humankind had it so easy, with limitless resources available to us all the time. Take, make, take is what our generation is. We've created an economy which has been linear, and then there was limitless, irresponsible consumption by all of us across the world. And look, where has it brought all of us? We've become a huge dump yard. Our Mother Earth is no longer recognizable by even people who were here 100 years ago. Forget about 10,000 years of human civilization. We all understand this has to change. That's the reason we're discussing this. And if we don't understand, it's available, visible to all of us every day of our lives, whether it's soaring temperatures or cloudburst and multiple other things. No matter what certain leaders of the world want us to believe, climate change is real and it is here to stay. And we may have crossed the tipping point no matter what we think about it. So what is sustainability mindset? Sustainability mindset has to be part of the DNA of our businesses and all its processes. The linear economy has to get converted into circular economy. My waste has to become somebody else's raw material, and somebody else's waste has to become my raw material. There is no other way. Consumption, we've crossed the stage. The modern world doesn't believe in zero consumption. One is not saying consumption has to go down, but consumption has to become mindful, conscious consumption. We have to be aware, what is it that we are consuming and why, and at least how much? We'll be surprised that quite a few times we don't even know the quantum of water or the resource that we are withdrawing out of Mother Earth. Responsibility in all our behavior is definitely the need of our. Because business as usual cannot be the mantra for future. Sustainability is the new collective and individual responsibility. So sustainable development, we all have heard the definition, but what does it practically amount to? It amounts to responsible, conscious consumption. It amounts to responsible technology. Technology which concentrates on not only giving us newer and newer ways of consuming more and more resources, but also tells us how to be more and more efficient with the same resources. It also means making it available through incentives and penalties. There is technology, there are resources, there are ways, and there are means which are available to all of us to cut our consumption, to be more efficient. But do we take a choice? Quite a few times we do not choose the most efficient one purely because of status quo scenario. So even if it means giving incentives, which Mr. Ruchi talked about, or even penalties, which the governments have been doing, whether it's NGT or other forces of the government. So no matter what one is trying to stress here is There is no other alternative than development to be sustainable. The reason I've mentioned sustainable development is because it's across industries. It's a humankind problem today. It's a problem of the world today. So sustainable tourism, looking at the definition, it is to do with the current as well as the future economic, social, environmental impact, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and the host communities. The bold here shows that quite a few times tourism chooses to ignore all the various stakeholders who are responsible for the business of tourism. So for tourism service providers, which is what we all are here, it means acceptance of sustainable service agreements facilitated by the government and targeting sustainable visitor satisfaction. If we are able to look at these two factors, I'm sure the business might be, sustainable on a whole. Sustainable tourism is the responsibility of all of us. No longer can it be relegated to niche sectors of tourism. The guidelines and management practices are applicable to all types of tourism, all types of destination, including mass tourism. This is the belief of Government of India now. So that's what brings us to sustainable tourism criteria for India. So what is STCI? It's based on global sustainable tourism criteria as the guiding principles. It's completely aligned to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They're accepted and launched by Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, and they're propagated and promoted by Eco-Tourism Society of India, the national body for responsible tourism, as sustainability partners to the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. So what does STCI plan to do? It demystifies sustainabilities to on-the-ground practitioners like you and me. It brings into our area of operation instead of it being somebody else's duty. It helps us find that way forward to from the place where we are today. It's a certification plan that measures your sustainability quotient today in current real time. So STCI has had a series of milestones. 2007 was the time when GSTC was launched. So GSTC, you keep on hearing GSTC because we are very proud to announce to the world that we are inspired and out of GSTC. So after GSTC 2010, India became aware and very conscious of the fact that we need to have guiding principles based on best practices around the world. 2014, there's a typo here, STCI was launched during UNWTO's International Conference on Sustainable Tourism in Hyderabad. 2016, the implementation of these criteria for accommodation sector and tour operators was launched to be implemented. So STCI, just to demystify it, is what exactly it is. It's based on 4 parameters as also specified by the earlier speaker. So it talks of economic viability of the enterprise. We cannot talk sustainability to human beings unless until we talk of economic viability. It talks of our socio-cultural responsibility. It talks of environment and biodiversity accountability. It also talks of a management plan because sustainability cannot be one-off fad. So STCI features principles, 4 principles plus 5th one of the management of the sustainability plan. So, and these principles downstream into criteria, there are 37 criterias, and these criterias are downstream further into 75 indicators. STCI scans organizational policy. It looks at the procedures followed by organization in every aspect. It looks at trainings. It looks at the records that you maintain. It also looks at the complaint and feedback mechanism. So principles of what are the principles that STCI stands on? It looks at your sustainable infrastructure. It looks at maximizing the socio-economic benefits. It looks at maximizing your cultural and historical benefits and environmental benefits. And of course, the management plan. So how does it all work? These are the principles of STCI. So A, B, C, D, E, which are essentially extrapolated out of the triple bottom line concept of sustainability. So each principle, as I said earlier, percolates down into a criteria. So suppose there's a criteria. Let's look at criteria A3. All personnel receive periodic training in the management of environmental, socio-cultural, quality, health, and safety practices. So if I have to check this criteria for a particular accommodation provider for a particular hotel, so what is it that I, as a certification body, would like to look at? The indicators that one looks at here is, do you have a sustainability training program for all your employees, all levels? Is there specific training packets on environmental, socio-cultural, quality, health and safety? Do you have a record of these training sessions? Is there literature available in all these sections? Is each organization able to identify the trainer who's going to train their staff on these? So when you have these indicators, we are able to log you on the principle that is identified as principle A. Similarly, if the principle is C, maximize social and economic benefits to the local community and minimize negative impacts. If you're looking at local fair, C3, local and fair trade services and goods, particularly from MSMEs, are purchased by the organization wherever available. So if you're a hotel, then what are the indicators? The indicators here are, do you prioritize consumables and services procured from local vendors depending upon availability? Do you have clear-cut purchase policy giving preference to the local goods and services? Do you have evidence of development of vendors in the area? Why I'm showing you all these is because no longer can anybody say sustainability is right, but what isn't it there for me to do? What will I do? So how does it work? First and foremost, join ESOI. We are the sustainability partners for the Ministry of Tourism, and we are the carriers of sustainable tourism criteria for India. My colleague Sanjay here has the forms available for ESOI membership. Please take the forms from him and join us. Apply for STCI certification with us. We'll inform you what the documents are required. So prepare documents for desk research. Prepare for site visits. Get a report on your sustainability quotient, and then you get a certification. We are looking at what the name of the certification is going to be. So another 3 or 6 months, we'll be ready with the certification plan. So there's going to be a logo and star rating system, which can be used on your promotional items like websites, online booking sites, brochures, catalogs, advertising, invoices, etc., etc. What makes it special is this is a certification which is recognized by Ministry of Tourism and GSTC. So what are the checkpoints? How is it different from other certification plans? STCI is recognized by the Ministry of Tourism. It is carried through by Ecotourism Society of India, and then it will have certification and inspection bodies, third-party auditing certification bodies like SCS and GICIA. So we will handhold the industry to ensure that internationally accepted best practices are followed in the industry. The benefits of STCI certification are continuous monitoring of adverse effects of tourism activities can be done so that we are able to initiate suitable corrective measures in all our businesses. We all understand the fact that sustainability is there to stay and there is no other option. Later on during the day, we also will see various practitioners of sustainability who tell us that sustainability may be a good business strategy too. So if we accept that, we automatically know that this is the only practice which is the practice for future. So certification like STCI certification will lead tourism professionals to tourism professionals who are sensitive to efficiency in infrastructure, health, safety, waste management, etc., etc. Hopefully, it will also create a sense of respect for environment, resources, flora, fauna, monuments, culture, religion, history, all our tourist products. It shall also ensure that benefits to the local community, including better health, education, and job opportunities are there. It should increase the exposure to local forms of art, handicrafts. STCI hopefully will prevent degradation of destinations the way all our destinations are facing today. It'll ensure awareness is created on sustainability and role of tourists towards sustainable tourism. It should bring well-being to the host communities, thereby minimizing the backlash that tourism faces in quite a few destinations, popular destinations across the world. Who is ESOI? We are an NGO. We are an advocacy body. We help governments make policy. We play a watchdog role. We try and generate and influence public opinion towards sustainability, and certification for sustainability in tourism, STCI, is our property, along with Ministry of Tourism. So call for action. What is it I'm wanting all of you here to do? Join us, speak up. The best time to act for sustainability was about 20 years ago. The next best time is today. Join the STCI movement. Benefit all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, not only for this wonderful talk, but for allowing me to stay calm and not have to panic about time. I now call our final speaker in this session, Ms. Taruna Singh, a natural resources management professional who is working in GICIA India Private Limited, which is an affiliate of SCS Global Services based out of California, USA, as a manager in the Natural Resource Division. Also a trained auditor for Alliance for Water Stewardship Sustainability Standards, she is associated with various national and international NGOs for development of sustainability standards for the management of protected areas, NWFPs, trees outside forests, and ecotourism. Ms. Singh, we eagerly await your thoughts on the certification process.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome everyone. My name is Taruna, and I come from an organization called as GICIA India Private Limited. By profession, I'm an auditor, and I'm here to present the certification process that we aim and intend to follow for the implementation of STCI in our tourism businesses in our country. So my presentation will broadly contain 4 sections. What is certification? Why certification is required in tourism industry? What will be the possible certification process that industry will go through in order to implement STCI standards? Then the challenges that can be faced in the whole process. Right. So starting with the definition of certification. So the spirit of certification follows a way of ensuring that an activity or a product or process meets certain standards. Now, these standards are generally predefined. So in our case, suppose STCI is a national standards. It's a set of criteria and indicators which are predefined by ESOI in collaboration with Ministry of Tourism and a bunch of extensive stakeholders. But as per Honey and Rome, they defined tourism in they defined certification in 2001 as a voluntary procedure that assesses, audits, and gives written assurance that specific facility, process, or a service is following standards. And as per their performance, they award a marketable tool to those who meet or exceed the baseline of these standards. Today, across the world, there are different organizations like GSTC, ESOI, and Rainforest Alliance who are developing these certification standards, including different attributes but not limited to quality of the tourism operations, sustainability, which includes all economic, environment, and social aspects, tourism that takes place in protected and natural ecosystems, involvement of the local communities. But then the question arises, why certification is required? Like Randy said in his presentation, certification helps distinguish genuine ecotourism and sustainable tourism businesses from others who make empty claims and, like we say, greenwashing. It improves industry's environmental, social, and economic performances. It provides various tangible and intangible benefits to businesses in the form of business reputation, increased and better brand value, popularity among the consumers, making consumer more aware about the choices and about the businesses who truly and fully understand how socially and environmentally responsible they are in their businesses. It provides benefits to government also, in the sense certification at a very basic level ensures that all the legal, national requirements are in compliance with. That way, they will be indirectly benefiting government also. That way, government can also maintain their market niche. Lastly, it ensures that environment and local communities are well in place and their interests are well safeguarded. So this is a certification process that we plan to adopt for STCI's scheme. So it starts with the application procedure, then registering the application under ESOI database, reviewing the applicant's documents and their application. This may include the type and the scope of services that they include, the number of sites they have, the type of operations they manage. This will also include assessing the risk associated with their businesses. After reviewing all that, an on-site audits take place. Post that, report are provided, certification decision is taken, and if certificate is issued, based on that, annual surveillance audit takes place for the period of certification cycle. After the certification cycle gets over, which will be 3 years in case of STCI, recertification will be required. Now I'll be taking you all quickly through the application procedure and the other certification processes that will be involved. The process starts with the application process. Like I told you, it will include submission, reviewing, screening the application. Post that, certification body in association with ESOI will have a documentation, guidance, and some case studies developed which will be shared with the industry in order to make them ready for the adoption of the STCI indicators and incorporating the spirit of those indicators into their businesses. These case studies will help them to prepare themselves for the audit. Then there will be a desk review process where the certification body will seek and collect baseline information from different mediums, from the clients, from their websites, from let's say a third party website, Make My Trip or Booking.com, the reviews that will be assessed. So all these information will be collected, collated, and based on the assessment against these documents, an on-site audit will be scheduled. So on-site audits will be taken by trained auditors. These audits will finalize the sites, and the main purpose of visiting the sites will be to determine if the applicants, the business system is being implemented in conformance with our standard. These visits will be designed and planned considering the attributes like number of sites. So suppose if a hotel wants to get just 10 of its sites certified out of 50, then those 10 sites which will be selected for the certification process, they might not be visited in all might not be visited in 1 year. Maybe during the first year, auditors will visit 3 sites, then subsequent years they'll visit other sites and so on. It also depends on the type of activities they do and the risk that are involved in their businesses. So whenever an auditor witnesses and goes to your site, they go and look out for evidences. Now, evidences are very important in order to showcase or portray the conformance and non-conformance of any businesses. A written document like health and policy document, manual, standard operating procedures, staff handbook, a feedback record from the guest, a complaint record, all those can be written documents to show the conformance or non-conformance. Similarly, if auditors go and witnesses the working condition of staff habits, warning signs, alarm, etc. So these can be the physical evidences sought that they will look for. And the compliance level, for example, obtaining NOC or having an environmental clearance, if that is a basic requirement for sustainable, for the tourism industry, then auditors would like to see that. The third very important aspect of audit is interview. Interview is generally done by the auditors not to find any fault in their operations. It's to find the facts. They want to know how they are operating, what are their business model, to have a routine discussion with them. At the same time, auditors will make sure that they do not jeopardize the position of that staff within the industry and the business. So these are some of the examples that auditors will, would like, or I would not say like to, these will be the activities that may definitely draw their attention. So if there is any tour operator who is operating and, let's say promoting the cultural tourism, then anybody involved under age of 14. So that will be a major non-conformance and will be in, major violation of our national law. Similarly, if somebody of less than 14 years of age working in an hotel setup or a restaurant hotel setup, then again, that will be a major non-conformance. That will be a violation of the STCI criteria and indicators. Auditors will always look for the high-risk areas. For example, if there is an accommodation setup or a tour operator operating near a river. So they like to know what are the impacts of their businesses on the riverine system or the ecosystems. So these are some of the examples where auditor would like to have their attention placed on. Very quickly, after the on-site audit, there will be a reporting system where a detailed discussion and a detailed evaluation results against the STCI will be contained in. The report explains the level of conformity of the STCI standard. It also includes the shortcomings in the form of non-conformities. So these non-conformities are generally of two types, major and minor non-conformities. So major explains a systematic failure, example, violation of a national law. So that will be a systematic failure. In that case, certificate will not be issued. And it cannot be issued until the proper implementation or the national laws, if required, they are not abided by. So these are the kind of observations and findings that can be part of the report. Based on that report, there will be a certification decision taken place. So this certification decision will be taken by a committee, which will include participants from ESOI as well as the certification body like us. So the decision could be issuance of the certificate as well as rejection. Rejection on the basis of any major failure or systematic failure being done in the businesses. And it will be issued if there are no major non-conformities and they are running their businesses in conformance with the STCI standard. So right, well, if the certificate is issued, there will be annual surveillance audit just to be sure that STCI indicators are still being implemented and getting certificate is not the last stage. So this is the requirement for surveillance audit. Then after 3 years of completion of the certification cycle, recertification process is done and the whole exercise is repeated again. So this is very new concept that STCI is coming up with. STCI is going to have its own rating system and a step-up approach. So it's different and unique in a way that it wants its businesses, the tourism industry, to strive and improve their conformance level with each successive year. So for example, if 60% of the requirement are there in conformance with the STCI, the businesses maybe start as bronze star. But with subsequent years, they will have an aim to achieve a better star rating. That can be silver or gold. So on an average, we assume that a very average operating business might get bronze star rating in the first year at the time of the certificate issuance, but after the completion of first year, they might have a silver rating system, and after completion of the second year, they'll reach up to the gold star rating, which means 85 to 100% compliance with the STCI, which is a big thing. So now, benefits of STCI rating, like we all say, it's a seal of confidence. The marketable logo that will be given to the industries will be a seal of confidence. It will inform their consumer about the choices that they are making. It will stimulate the market demand, and it will make the market more prone towards the consumers who go for the sustainable businesses, encouraging continuous improvement, promoting certification. And now where can these logos can be used? These logos can be used on their websites, on the online booking sites, brochures, catalogs, invoices, letterheads, etc. So let's say these logos are used on TripAdvisor, which promotes the eco-labeling. So like I said, that there will be some challenges that we'll definitely face while implementing STCI certification in the country. The basic and the very first challenge is the size of the tourism industry. The industry is big. There's a variation in scope of tourism management practices. There's a huge length and breadth of this sector in the country. There are lots of people who are involved directly, indirectly in this business. There is an intent to feel a fear of certification being an additional headache on them, which is in addition to their operational activities that are going on. The third is a lack of knowledge among the industry about the people, about the process of the certification and its relevance. Industry has a very less knowledge about the impacts that they are making on their environment, on the ecosystem, and on the society. Cost is another major hindrance for industries not coming out for choosing the certification process. Then there's a lack of cooperation from small, micro, and medium level enterprises in tourism industry to operate in a responsible manner, because they are very well accustomed and they are very much comfortable in going with business as usual scenario. So that's all from my side. I thank you all for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Taruna. I now hand you over back to Mr. Mathur for a very quick, and he's promised it won't be more than 10 minutes Q&A session.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's been a whole lot of valuable inputs on GSTC, on STCI, on the certification process. If there are any questions and if there are any clarifications that anybody wants, this is an opportunity. We have precisely 10 minutes, and we don't have much time, so at 1 o'clock I'm going to call it a close. Yes, gentlemen there, please identify yourself and tell us who you are addressing the question to. We would need another mic for the...
Hello. Hi, my name is Udit. I represent two sides of the industry. We run a boutique travel company that works with the inbound industry coming to India, people coming to India. And we're also coming up with boutique hotels in different parts of the country. So my question goes to the gentleman who represents GSTC and also the lady who talked about the STCI. As stakeholders in this industry, we are of course expected to behave in a certain way, which is fine. We are more than eager to do that. What are the steps that are being taken by same organizations or organizations that are affiliated to them to create awareness with the travelers, with the people who are the final consumers of the services about what they are doing? So if I have a GSTC certificate or a let's say a eco logo which is being represented in my website, on my hotel, and on my tours. Same if I'm complying to I have, let's say, hopefully I have the gold star from STCI and the certification authorities. What are the activities being done by these organizations to let the traveler also know that when you see this, it means something?
Boy, that's a monumental task in this country. But I'll let, would the lady or Randy like to answer first? Okay. Can you give a mic to Mr. Randy, please? What are we as organizations doing to address the travelers?
I don't think they're doing enough. We call it green hushing. Dr. Javier Font at Surrey University in the UK has done some research on this to find there's a surprising amount of businesses that just simply don't boast about what they're doing. And I think that's a big mistake, because studies show that employee retention is higher if you're doing the right thing, customers are feeling better, and you inspire others. So I think in general, much more should be done. Those that are doing something will proudly display in their website, but still rather buried. because they've got a sales and marketing message first and foremost. But more and more we're seeing, in marketing material that, down the line about why to purchase from us, we're doing these right things. And so what we do at GSTC is encourage the hotel, the tour operator, to talk about their key policies and their key practices, what they're actually doing. And then if they're certified, point that out and show the logo, the certification body, show the logo of GSTC. So now that over-tourism and some issues of non-sustainability have gone mainstream, quite recently, global news media are calling out. And so there is, sometimes they're reaching out to travel companies. And so that's gotten their attention. So their PR departments are now, preparing more and more information. But I would argue it's still very early, very immature. Much more needs to be done. Much more should be done.
Thank you, Randy. Would Anjana like to? Yeah.
Hi, Udit. Very, very relevant and difficult question. Okay, what are organizations like us doing to sensitize the customer? That was the question, right?
I'm sorry, I asked because I'm following both your websites. I'm also subscribed to your newsletters.
Right.
So, me and my colleague, we're starting a new hotel and we're almost already following a lot of those criteria. But the thing is that when somebody checks into the room and when they see the certificate, it should mean something to them. So what is being done by the organizations to make that relevant to the traveler? When they check in, when they see the certificate, what's the value? Or when they come onto my website, is there something being done about that? Like the UN sustainable goals, the 12 or 16 goals, they were talked about globally.
Yeah.
So they became something of value.
Right.
So something like that.
Monumental task, huge amount of work which is to be done by all of us. Here we are talking of B2B or B2G, so government to business or business to business. So that itself is a very small sector. Now just imagine B2C, that's huge. So B2C has to be addressed by all of us. So when you say that what are we specifically doing, it's not enough, but specific points, we are talking of it, in every communication that we have. We tie up with schools. We're trying to tap various sectors, so schools, colleges, students, etc., etc. Sustainability is a mantra which we keep on uttering at all various levels and forums. Besides that, the operators who get associated with us, and who gets STCI compliance certificate, they also get a direct access and mention on the Ministry of Tourism website. Ministry of Tourism is going to have a separate page on its website, which is, for all the operators who are STCI compliant. So that is one thing which the government is doing. Now, that itself is not enough. We are also asking the industry to join us because it has to finally translate into a B2B movement. So there are other market access initiatives that we are looking at, but as of now, all of them are in the pipeline. So it's work in progress, and we request all of you to join us. More the merrier.
Thank you, Anjana. We have time for one more question. Just one more question, please. Anybody else wants to ask anything? Okay, thank you. I think you can proceed.
I now request Mr. Vivek Vikas, Director IEML, to please come on stage to felicitate all our speakers of the first session. Sir. Mr. Vinod Zucchi, please.
Thank you so much. Randy Durban, please. I'm sure we can get a clap going at least. I mean, come on. It's not yet that late in the day. Dr. Dheer. Dr. Dheer, please. And of course, Ms. Taruna Singh, please. Come on. We now have a really truncated 5-10 minute break for tea. The faster we get back in, the faster we can start and get to lunch and next session. So I hope everyone will be here by 1:15. Thank you so much, sir. That was it, 5 people. Thank you. So I'll see you all again at 1:15. Thank you.